Tokyo Ghoul has one of the most passionate fan bases in anime. So why are its Roblox games almost always mid? Today, we're talking about Ghoulery and how even Megami Fushiguro had less wasted potential than this game. Let that sink in. Now, this is something that's really been bothering me for quite some time, mainly because I'm a huge Tokyo Ghoul fan, and it genuinely hurt to see the series get done dirty yet again. There were a few games that came before Ghoulery, those being Ghoul, Ghoul's Bloody Night, and Project Ghoul. And to be fair, for their time, those games were good. You know what, I'd even say those games were great. I vividly remember spending an entire summer grinding Ghoul. Like, that was peak adolescence right there. But then Ghoulery came along and it looked incredibly promising. I'm talking the atmosphere was looking great, the visual effects, the animations, they were all leagues above anything we'd seen previously. It felt like this was finally going to be the Tokyo Ghoul game. So how did it go so wrong? How did a game with this much potential end up falling behind Ghoul, a game that released nearly a decade ago and still has fewer active players today? It's honestly just sad. Like, really sad. But a big part of the problem comes down to something a lot of players have already noticed, that being Ghoulery doesn't feel original. It feels like a reskin. More specifically, it feels like it's borrowing heavily from the structure and design philosophy of Type Soul. And Ghoulery isn't the only perpetrator of this act. You know, Devil Hunter did the same exact thing. Shoot, Off the Dome, that was really the only comparison I have, but there are a whole bunch of games that just stole the same structure and mechanics that Type Soul was using, you know, the blueprint. And inspiration isn't a bad thing inherently because every game builds on something, but there's a difference between inspiration and replication. Because instead of adapting mechanics to fit Tokyo Ghoul's themes, Ghoulery instead adapts Tokyo Ghoul to fit pre-existing mechanics. Type Soul. And when that happens, the source material stops shaping the game and instead the system shapes the experience instead. The result feels less like a reimagining and more like a pre-built template being used. And this is where the lack of creativity becomes most noticeable. Not in the visuals, not in the animations, but in the design decisions. Because Ghoulery never really asks, how do we make players feel like they're living in Tokyo Ghoul? Instead, it asks, how do we make this system work with the Tokyo Ghoul skin on it? And those are two completely different approaches. Now, sure, you could say Roblox has its limitations, right? But limitations don't kill ideas, they force them to evolve. Instead of focusing purely on linear progression and combat, Ghoulery could have leaned into something far more fitting for both the platform and the source material. And I believe that would be community. A more player-driven experience where reputation matters, where alliances are fragile, where your identity as a ghoul or investigator is shaped by how others perceive you. They could have recreated the same tension and unease that the series had and is known for, I'd say, but they completely blundered. Even systems that are usually unpopular, like permadeath, could have really worked here if handled correctly. Most players hate losing everything, and trust me, I hear that. Shit, I remember, you know, getting wiped in Deep Oaken and truly foaming out the mouth. I was fuming. That shit pisses me off, losing everything. But in some games, especially in a Tokyo Ghoul game, I feel like where, you know, survival is uncertain and every encounter carries a risk, that kind of consequence could have really enhanced the immersion of the game. If progression, status, or even your character's life carried real weight, every decision would matter way more. Every interaction would feel more human, because Tokyo Ghoul is never really just about what you are, it's about how the world interacts with what you are. In a multiplayer space like Roblox, I feel especially, that dynamic wasn't just possible, I feel like it should have been pushed. It was probably the strongest tool that they could have utilized to make the game way better. Now, for me personally, this is where the game completely lost me. The monetization. Holy shit. The monetization. You get it. Motherfuckers monetizing the game. And I'll be fair here because not everything was bad about it in Ghoulery. One thing I will give devs credit for is the addition of GP or Ghoul points. It's a system that actually rewards you for playing the game that you could earn from doing like permadeath events, and so on. And you could use the Ghoul points to reroll things like your appearance, your Kagune, and a few other things. And on paper, that's great. It gives free-to-play players a way to progress without having to spend Robux. But the problem isn't the existence of the system, it's how it's balanced. Because once you actually start engaging with it, especially on the Ghoul side, you run straight into a wall. The Kagune rarity is the system that they got for that was really just ridiculous, to say the least. The rates for anything remotely good feel way too low, and the cost of rerolling doesn't justify it at all. You end up stuck in this loop where you're either grinding for GP, dumping it into rerolls, and getting absolutely nothing in return, and then you proceed to whip out the wallet and spend Robux to buy more rerolls to try to increase your chances of getting a better Kagune. And after a while, it stops feeling like true progression and you're just gambling, and it's pure punishment. It's like actually soul draining, because at that point, it's not even about experimenting with builds or finding something that fits your playstyle. It's pure RNG until the game decides you're allowed to get something good and then enjoy and have fun. And that's where the monetization really starts to show its teeth, because yeah, you can grind for GP or you can just pay. And when the grind feels this unrewarding, that choice, I put in quotations, doesn't even really feel like a choice anymore. It feels like pressure, like the system is intentionally tuned to waste your time, just enough to push you enough into spending money. And that completely breaks the experience for me, and I'm sure many of you as well, especially in a game based on Tokyo Ghoul, where your Kagune isn't just like a stat, it's a core part of who you are. It's a core part of your identity, and you shouldn't feel like what you got is something out of a slot machine. It should feel like a defining trait, something that you grow into and not something that you're gambling for. You understand what I'm saying? And that's really what it comes down to. Ghoul had everything it needed to succeed: the visuals, the atmosphere, the fan base, and still managed to fumble it. Not because it couldn't be great, but because instead it chose not to be. A game built on potential that got sold for profit before it even got fulfilled. Now, I'm curious, do you think Ghoul still has a chance to recover, or is it already too far gone? And if you played it before, what made you quit? Please let me know down below. I appreciate you guys, and yeah, until next time, peace.